Death, death, death comes sweeping down. Filthy death, the leering clown. Death on wings, death by surprise, veiling evil from worldly eyes. Death that's born as life succumbs, while death and love, two kindred drums, beat the time to judgment day. An actor in a passionate play, without beginning, without end, evermore. Amen.
Welcome to the Cinematic Void Podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Hey, what's going on? It's Nick Vance, Paranoid Futures on social media. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. If you want to support the Void, you should send us your money on Patreon.
Or just send us money in general. You can put it in an envelope and just... I think Nick has a P.O. box now, don't you?
I do, but you could slide me a little 20 at the theater or something.
As far as anything goes, like, this podcast is free, but if you want to hear some of the older episodes, they are behind the Patreon paywall because, hey, you want to hear us talk about, like, you know, Halloween movies and shit like that? Hey, $5 a month gets you access to that, gets you access to the Cinematis Movie Archive, where it was, you know, the virtual online screening series that I do from time to time, which is actually, by the time this episode drops, it will be premiering on October 7th. New season, new day, new start time, same Cinematis. It'll be October 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Getting them plugs in.
Hell yeah.
So how you been doing, man?
Good. Beyond Fest just started, as you know. So yeah, we've been swamped, inundated. And just, I don't know. I don't think I've really done it. I don't think I've been doing anything.
No, Beyond Fest has been a lot.
Yeah.
Just got done filming with our boy Kellen from the Kellen's Petty Talk Show. I got it right there. I fucked it up every single time I did it on the video. So I had to like drop in his logo and stuff because I got lazy and didn't want to do a lot of takes. But we did a thing called, or I'm calling John Carpenter's Los Angeles, which is we ran around from downtown LA to Venice, just stopping at as many filming locations from the films of John Carpenter. Hit things like the obvious Halloween, there's Prince of Darkness, there's They Live, there's The Fog, there's Assault on Precinct 13, I think there's one from Christine. So we got a lot of stuff. And it was actually cool. The premise was to do it all in one day, but that was like impossible because, like, you know, geographically the way LA is, like going from one location to another, it just made it a massive drive to get around. And we did some side missions in there. We ended up doing some locations from Night of the Creeps, Night of the Demons, People Under the Stairs, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. The first batch actually has already come out, and you can view that on YouTube, but the other one we're still working on, so that should come out later. And that was a lot of fun. Also, just wrapped up, this is Boston, not LA, at the Los Feliz 3. The homie Midnight Mark came in from the Coolidge Corner Theater, introduced Blown Away, and the screenwriter of the film showed up.
Very cool.
And basically talked about how much Tommy Lee Jones was a dick to him.
Was the screenwriter planned, or he popped in?
He just showed up.
Very cool.
I think Mark had this thing planned, and then once the screenwriter showed up, he's like, oh man, I can't, you know, I think he was going to have a little more fun. But then the screenwriter's like, fuck it, I want to have fun.
Hell yeah. And then Deanna popped out.
No Deanna this week, or that week, but
right on.
It did remind me of the last time a screenwriter randomly showed up, which was to Live and Die in LA, and we did that elaborate fucking recreation of the car chase.
Mm-hmm. With the trash can.
With the trash can,
right.
Yeah. John Rice was one of the writers of Blown Away, and he, I guess, really enjoyed watching it with a crowd. When Mark was there, we did Halloween Horror Nights, and we decided to do the challenge of just seeing how many mazes we could get through with just a regular ticket.
Mm-hmm.
4.
Gotcha.
Because we're old, our feet were hurting, and we're just like...
So nothing to do with the actual park. It's just,
well,
we were just old, so...
The park stays open till like 2 a.m.
Really?
On Horror Nights. Not everything is still open. I think the Terror Tram closes at like midnight, but like all the mazes are still open. And you can pay, I think after 11 o'clock, you can get a fast pass thing to go do shit. But like, you know, we got there like 5 something. We stopped at Krusty Burger, had something to eat. You know, the lines got long quick. Like, we end up doing The Exorcist for the new movie, and all I gotta say is that, like, there's a weird demon thing in there, and it's like, if that shit's in the movie, this movie's not gonna be good.
Right on.
It was like the the basic premise of the maze was pretty cool, but like there's this goofy looking demon and it just felt like it was out of like a different movie or franchise or whatever. I'm trying to think of the other mazes we did. We did the Monsters of Latin America maze, which was really cool. Did the Evil Dead Rises maze, which was probably the best thing we did.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of fun, actually scary. I actually kind of enjoyed that movie, so like it was nice that the maze kind of capitalized on it. And then we also did the Terror Tram because I knew Mark wanted to, go to Sacred Ground and see the, the Psycho House, the Bates Hotel, and all that.
Yeah.
Which you kind of walk through as, part of the maze. So it was fun, but goddamn, I'm old. And I think the only way you can do Halloween Horror Nights is if you shell out that extra money and get at least one round of Fast Pass. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it in a timely manner. I guess if we stayed here at like 3 a.m, we could have done everything. But it's just like, we did 4 mazes and rode the Simpsons ride. And it's just like, done.
Cool.
So that's basically been it. Because we've been in the madness of Beyond Fest. And, what we're talking about today is actually a movie that's playing Beyond Fest. And
So check it out. I need to butt in because I wanted to butt in like 5 minutes ago.
oh, sorry.
So I did a little location scouting myself.
Oh, what'd you do?
I had band practice out in Simi Valley, and I had a little time to kill, so I went to the Poltergeist house.
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
And I just drove by. I didn't get out and like, I should have got out and done like a little thing, and then you get like tack it on at the end of yours. Here's Nick at the Poltergeist house.
Yeah. Dude,
For no reason.
you did your little horror clown. I was actually up that way once. One of the locations for Night of the Comet, it's out that way.
Oh, cool.
It's like their house in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
Cool.
see
I'll have to
it.
look that up.
Yeah, it's pretty close by to the Poltergeist house, and I think like sort of near there, maybe not exactly there. Like you have to drive out. I think the hospital from Halloween 2's around there too.
I mean, there's not a whole lot out there, so
No,
I'm like, when I figured out where the Poltergeist house was, I'm like, oh, I've been right here getting food in the shopping center, like right next to the, like I've been right there multiple times,
might as well swing by and say hello.
Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of ET filming locations because if I remember correctly, I think ET and Poltergeist were kind of shooting at the same time because Spielberg was the producer of Poltergeist. Keyword producer. Let's just keep with that.
Right on. Also, though, I will say I'm not talking shit on Simi Valley. It's actually really nice out there. I really like it.
Yeah,
If it wasn't such a far travel to work, I would love to live out there.
I think I don't want to say it's more affordable, but I think it might be. Probably.
And then I went to see The Town
Oh yeah,
as part of your series recently. So
that was fun. That was a fun screening.
oh yeah, hell yeah, it rocked.
It was the second week in a row we had a celebrity show up. When we did the Brinks job, Mark Maron showed up, and I think Chris Pine showed up for this one.
Right on. Never know who you're gonna see.
Nope.
The LF3. That should be their logo. That should be their tagline.
I mean, there was that time Kanye West, he didn't show up for our screen. What the hell did Kanye show up for at the LF3?
Wait, I remember that.
Oh, his Bo was afraid. That's what it was.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say Barbie.
That'd be kind of funny.
That'd be
but-
awesome. With the fucking face mask, the zipper face mask thing on, the gimp mask.
Going in the Barbie like that. I don't know, but I guess that's pretty much what we've been up to, I think. And we've mentioned Beyond Fest, and what we're talking about is a movie that's playing Beyond Fest. It's part of the Void co-presentations. We're doing The Church, and we're also doing Cemetery Man. Both are directed by Michele Soavi. And it was your idea. So, like, we should do an episode on Cemetery Man because you're like, I loved it when I saw it, like, in high school time. And it's like, it's one of my favorite movies. Like, duh, fucking no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And just scheduling-wise, it's kind of timed out that we could do it in time. Because normally, depending on our record schedule, it's either, like, it's not enough time or, like, it's, it's hard to plan these sometimes. But this just, like, this fell in perfectly because we got a little bit ahead because we had another episode that was supposed to be coming out this week, which is going to come out next week, which is going to be Night of the Living Dead and Carnival of Souls, which is really exciting for everyone here. I think that's one of our best episodes yet.
Cool.
And it just made sense to do a Cemetery Man episode because, we actually watched it. We watched the, Blu-ray of it, not the Severn one because that's not out yet. This is one of the older, I think, like German Blu-rays or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're going to talk about Cemetery Man and Michele Soavi and all kinds of stuff, you know, zombies, Italian horror, how a movie can be more than just a zombie movie. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll be talking about Cemetery Man, aka DELLAMORTE DELLAMORE, on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
There's goblins, there's ghouls, there's pirates about. Halloween's coming, the trick-or-treaters are out. But look at that witch on Halloween night. She's the first one with a blinking pumpkin light. Pumpkin light flashes so everyone knows she is near. Pumpkin light makes Halloween safer and scarier this year. And pumpkin light safer for a spooky pumpkin too. Just pop it right in and watch your pumpkin go boo.
Pumpkin Light is available at Osco, Purity Supreme, Spags, and Leeward's.
Hiya, kids. It's me, your friend Grandpa. I gotta tell you, I am starting a new club, and I want you to join. It's called the Junior Vampires of America. I mean, you'll hear scary monster stories. Now, to call, you gotta ask your parents' permission and call this phone number, 1-900-909-4300. You'll hear all about my monster friends, learn how to get a free vampire patch and a list of special vampire tricks and secrets. So call 1-900-909-4300. Learn how to scare your friends, even yourself. Join Grandpa's Junior Vampires of America Club, and I will make you a junior vampire.
Hey kids, call 1-900-909-4300. That's 1-900-909-4300 to hear Grandpa's scary stories and join the Junior Vampires Club. Just $2 a first minute, 45 cents each additional. Ask Mom or Dad first.
Welcome back. We are talking about the 1994 movie Cemetery Man here on the Cinematic Void Podcast. It was directed by the great Michele Soavi,
Who Jim has assured me he has found out that is the correct pronunciation.
It is. I've multiple sources. I've seen Rupert Everett talk about him in an interview, and it was Michele Soavi.
Okay. Like Rico Suave.
Yes, unfortunately. God. Anyway, this movie is also known as DELLAMORTE DELLAMORE or DELLAMORTE DELLAMORE. That's the one. I think it's DELLAMORTE Della. Oh, God damn it.
Of death, of love.
Yeah, DELLAMORTE DELLAMORE.
I know Italian, by the way. I don't know if I...
Do you? Of course not. Okay. It's like after all these fucking episodes where I've like struggled with fucking like filmmaker actor names, you're like, by the way, I'm fluent in Italian. Thanks a lot, you fucking prick. Anyway, film stars Rupert Everett, who is British, Anna Fauci, Francois Haji Lazaro, Fabini Fermaca, and Barbara Capisti, who was in Suave's Stage Fright in the Church, as well as Argento's Opera, and also Fulci's New York Ripper. So she's been in some absolute Italian bangers.
So you got the director right, but you're taking the rest of these fools down to the butcher shop with their names and hacking them to pieces, dude.
Am I? All right, I forgot you're the Italian expert. All right, why don't you run through these now?
No, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Well, pretty good. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep the suffering going here. Screenplay by Gianni Romoli, who also was one of the writers on Dario Argento's Trauma, and he also wrote another film for Soavi, which was The Sect. Here's the one I'm going to really fuck up here. Cemetery Man is based on a book by Tiziano Scalavi, who created the popular Dylan Dog comic book in Italy, which was also made into a movie, which I've never seen.
300 issues of that comic book. So there's a lengthy run there.
Yeah. And most importantly is that the character Dylan Dog in the comic book, his likeness was based upon actor Rupert Everett, which is kind of full circle and is also why he got cast in Cemetery Man. And I think a lot of the book DELLAMORTE DELLAMORE, which was written, was cannibalized and used in Dylan Dog. So it all makes sense here. Cinematography by Mauro Machete. Now I'm second guessing every time I say name.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Yeah, it's fine. Rather be right than really wrong. But I might be really wrong still anyway.
No, I feel bad.
That's fine.
Oh, you made me feel bad, Jim.
I made you feel bad. Anyway, cinematography by Mario.
You got me back, basically.
I got you back. Cinematography is by Mauro Machete, who transitioned from the camera department to DP. Some of the films he worked on as a cameraman or camera assistant was Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Who Saw Her Die, Last Tango in Paris, Footprints on the Moon, Apocalypse Now, Last Shark, and Popeye, just to name a few. So he's done a lot of like Italian films as a DP, but just looking at his pedigree of who he was like camera operating or assistant cameraing is just incredible. He worked a lot with Vittorio Storaro and Giuseppe Rotondo, who shot All That Jazz and The Leopard. Storaro obviously was Apocalypse Now, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, things like that. A lot of Bertolucci movies, like obviously Last Tango in Paris. The film was edited by Franco Fraticelli, who was Argento's longtime editor. Basically, he started on Argento's Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and I think pretty much ran through Opera. I think Four Flies was the only movie he didn't edit from that period. But he also edited Lamberto Bava's Demons 1 and 2, and he also did Soavi's The Church and the Sect. Special effects by Sergio Stavallati, who started working with Argento around Phenomena and is actually still working with him as an effects artist. He just did Dark Glasses with Argento.
Nice.
He also worked with Soavi on The Church and the Sect. Scores by Manuel De Sica, who also scored the very cool Gialli Crimes of the Black Cat. And for those who haven't seen this movie, which it's kind of understandable depending on when you grew up and availability, but hopefully...
How close Jim lived to you at the time.
Yeah, if I was like bootlegging my bootleg of it and handing you off. Basically, Francesco Dellamorte plays a beleaguered caretaker of a small Italian cemetery who searches for love while defending himself from dead people who keep rising up again and again and again and again. Well, they just get up once. And then
The Returners.
Yes, The Returners. This movie was listed by director Martin Scorsese as one of the best Italian films from the 1990s.
Hell yeah, that rocks.
I'm going to disagree with Marty. I think it's one of the best Italian movies ever made.
Oh!
But, shout out for Marty for, calling out.
That's real sick.
And
he's right.
No, he's right. I might think it's, one of the best, but, if someone of Scorsese's level is dropping in, hey, this was one of the best ones to come out in the 90s.
Or just, definitely one of the best films of the 90s.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I agree. I'm busting Marty's balls a little bit, but, that's high praise. So,
cool.
Before we start the discussion, I think we're just going to give a little background on Michele Soavi because, we're showing 2 of his films in Beyond Fest. Basically, he started out as an actor. He appeared in things like Fulci's Gates of Hell and New York Ripper, and you can also see him as the masked man in Lamberto Bava's Demons, and also played a significant role in Bava's A Blade in the Dark. He was the assistant director to Joe D'Amato, who gave him his first shot to make a, feature film, which ended up being Stage Fright, written by the actor George Eastman. He's probably best known for his association with Dario Argento. He started out as an assistant director. He was actually the second assistant director behind Lamberto Bava for a few years, then moved up to first assistant director, and then Argento ended up producing films for him. And although Stage Fright is his first feature film of a narrative sort, he actually directed the documentary Dario Argento's World of Horror, which I think pretty much kind of takes, it's a lot of interviews, but there's footage from all periods of Argento up until Phenomena. So it's a really cool documentary. I remember renting that. That was probably the first Michele Soavi movie I saw, was that one.
Was he working on the documentary as he was working with Argento?
Yes.
Kind of simultaneous thing?
Yes, pretty much. I guess they started documenting stuff because, I don't know how much of it he was there for because, there's definitely footage from, Suspiria and things like that. But, definitely the stuff between Tenebrae and Phenomena he was there for because he was working as one of the assistant directors. Besides Argento, he was also Lamberto Bava's assistant director, which is how he ended up playing roles in all those movies, So Michele put in work. And something that I just kind of want to point out, he was Terry Gilliam's second unit director on The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And from a lot of reports was one of the people instrumental in keeping that film going when it hit a lot of financial issues and all that. Okay. And years later, he ended up being the second unit director on another Gilliam film, which was Brothers Grimm. Anytime I've seen an interview with Terry Gilliam about Michele Soavi, he's had nothing but high praise for him. So, basically anyone who's ever worked with him is high praise. If you go on YouTube, there's an interview with Rupert Everett where he's talking about Cemetery Man, and I don't think he necessarily likes the movie, but he has a lot of respect for Michele Soavi and says he's a really clever, interesting, great director, and it was a pleasure to work with him. I'm just assuming that movie wasn't Rupert's bag, but I think he appreciates the cult success that it has.
Yeah.
And last thing about Soavi is basically after Cemetery Man, he kind of stepped away from the film industry. He had a son that was not doing too well, so he just focused on taking care of him. And then when he came back, he kind of just went into Italian TV, which is where he's working pretty much since. Okay. He's actually working on something right now. So, it's, there's part of me that kind of wonders what would have happened if like his filmmaking career kept going, because I feel like if there was a guy from that era that was making films in Italy that could have like really crossed over and got bigger, I think it would have been him. Okay. I mean, just based on Cemetery Man.
Sure.
Because I feel like, as much as I love a lot of the Italian genre stuff, and like I think a lot of filmmakers had a really good run in the 70s and maybe a little bit in the 80s, no one was really having the run that he was having in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And Cemetery Man is a testament to that. So with that all said and done, let's talk about Cemetery Man. You basically rewatched it for the first time in how many years?
Probably 20, maybe more. Yeah, I definitely saw it in high school in the 90s via you giving me a VHS tape with this and many other things on it. But it's been a really long time. I haven't been able to revisit it because, as we all know, it's not widely available or anything.
Yeah.
But
thanks to Severn Films, it will be very, very soon, which I'm really excited for. And I've seen a little bit of the new restoration, and it just fucking kills. It's better than what we watched. And like,
I mean, dude, what the thing we watched the other day, I mean, I'd only seen it on a VHS tape a really long time ago. So seeing it this clear was a game changer for sure. And I can't wait to see the brand new one, man.
The last time I think I watched it was maybe around 2016, 17. I know I screened Cemetery Man as part of a zombie all-nighter that I did at the Aero Theater back in February 2017, which like I've been on record as one of my least favorite screenings I did. Not because of the movies I played, but just because like at the time I was kind of pressured to do something like big, and I just like it just wasn't me, and I'd rather have used those movies in different ways. Mm-hmm. Especially because I was going over the no repeat stuff. But like, as I've gone in 7 years, going to be 8 years deep soon with Cinematic Void, there's probably some of those movies I'm going to replay again just because it's been long enough, and two, it's like I can do them in a different context. Mm-hmm. Which is definitely, I jumped at the opportunity to make sure, show Cemetery Man at Beyond Fest.
Totally.
And like when I heard Severn was working on it, that was one of my pitches, was like to do that. My original pitch was a little bigger in scope, and I'm not going to really talk about that because something might still happen with that one day. But like, it's good that this and The Church ended up in the lineup, and Cemetery Man selling out just feel like a bit of a vindication, because it's like, it's a movie that's kind of been lost in the zeitgeist, or could easily been lost in the zeitgeist, but like enough people gave a fuck to like basically sell that bitch out. Mm-hmm. And The Church is getting there too, so I expect The Church to be very much packed.
Demons 3.
So in prep for this podcast, I ended up watching it once before you and I watched it, because I hadn't seen it in a while. And let me tell you something. I always loved this movie and always had an impact on me, but like going back and rewatching it then and then rewatching with you, it's just like the movie's so fucking good, but on so many different levels. And like, there's a base way you can watch it, which is like Italian zombie movie. But like, if you watch it for like, basically might be one of the best examples of like art house, horror, comedy, like, just a fucking solid film. Like Cemetery Man just nails it. And I guess my question to you is, what was it like rewatching it for the first time since seeing it on, a shitty VHS copy that I made you?
Yeah, like I said, the newer version we watched, which was the Blu-ray that came out maybe 2006 or something, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks fucking great. I had never seen it like that, of course. But yeah, I definitely, the last time I saw it, it was definitely just like awesome zombie movie before zombies have been completely ruined culturally for all of us in the past 20 years.
Yeah, very much.
So I saw this before that, and yeah, it was just a really great, gory, fun, funny film with like, a girl with gigantic tits. If it was remade now, she would just have a gigantic ass instead. Yeah, but watching it now is a completely different experience, because there is a lot of depth to it and a lot going on.
Now, I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, I always viewed this movie as a lot of depth, and I think like there's a part of me, because of how like I was growing up and like feeling alienated and like let's just be real. I didn't feel very attractive. I didn't really date or whatever. And you just feel kind of lost. And when you see someone that like looks as good as Rupert Everett, who like, ruins, gets 3 chances at the love of his life, and like it all goes sideways each and every time.
Yeah.
There's also that bit of it there. It's just like, I think one of the comments we had while watching is, it's like, did we watch like Francesco Dellamorte just become an incel as the movie progressed?
Yeah.
I mean, we're joking as we're saying that, but like, the thing is, like, when he meets that, the widow, and like, they have this, like, I guess the best sex or whatever that instant is, and then like she gets bit by the zombie of her dead husband, and then he thinks she's dead, and then he thinks she comes back, and then he shoots her, and it turns out that she wasn't dead, so he ended up killing her, which is like this weird.
Yeah. So that's like, it's not so much like him having like a hatred of women kind of arc, as much as he just feels really bad for killing her the first time.
Yeah. And then like Nagi ends up killing her the second time. And, then he meets her again, and she's like, oh, I only can date an impotent man. And he's like, yep, I'm impotent, and goes and gets that shot and all that. Which is like, man, you're doing crazy shit for love. And like, it's kind of funny because like in normal like dirtbag guy circles, you usually do something to get with the woman because you want to have sex with her.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing this just to be with the woman, knowing that he can. And then like, of course, there's that twist where like basically she's like, oh, I like sex now, and since you're impotent and can't do it, see ya.
Maybe the fact that the whole love at first sight thing, I think, is more of an incel arc than the rest of the movie. If you think about it,
no,
who operates like that? Oh, I can't be without her.
Yeah,
the first time that you see someone, that's weird to me.
I mean, it's
it's a film. It's, you only get 2 hours. It's romanticizing the idea of it. It's fake. It's not real. But
as
reality.
But as a trope,
yeah.
Love at first sight.
Yeah,
like, because
it works for the film, but.
But how it works in most movies is that like, there's the pining, there's like then like, the questionable angling, and
mm-hmm.
like, making a change or becoming someone you're not. It's like he doesn't really change himself outside of maybe like, because like the whole rumors is that he doesn't even have a dick, which is like
right.
one of the most hilarious things. Like, well, you work at a cemetery, and obviously you didn't kill this girl because everyone knows you don't have one.
Yeah.
And
was it implying that all cemetery caretakers are eunuchs?
I mean, maybe
they don't want you fucking the dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if that's really a cemetery problem. It's more probably like at a morgue or like a funeral home problem. Because once they're in the ground, then it's like you have to do work to get to it.
Yeah.
Although in this movie there's not much work because the dead are coming back. And I just kind of finish up the point, and like I'm not trying to say he's an incel, but he definitely, there's a thing that happens in the movie that I never really thought about, and maybe I'm thinking too much of it, is like when she comes back as the zombie and bites him,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't die. That's where the movie kind of shifts. It goes from like him just shooting zombies or whatever. It's like that's just his fucking job. He's caretaking this cemetery and like killing zombies. But then there's that shift where like, he gets the image of death and like saying like, well, the death are mine. You need to take care of the living. You should be shooting them in the head. And there's definitely that first thing they've plays out as like the active shooter fantasy when he like drives up and like caps a bunch of people.
It's wild. I totally had forgotten about that part.
Yeah.
So I by the way, I added that to my letterbox mass shooting list. So now Cemetery Man is part of that. Thank you.
Part of that canon.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing. After he gets bit, the movie does change, and that's when he starts seeing like the different versions of her. There's that one, then there's the other girl that he meets and like goes back to her apartment, and it turns out she's a prostitute.
So with that, so it seems like when he has the mass shooting thing, it's a fantasy. Maybe suggesting that from that point forward, maybe the whole rest of the film is a fantasy. I mean, everything from, because check it out. I go on a little early at this, but like, so it's not only does he do the mass shooting thing, but then he sees her as like, so basically different women that he comes across later. It's, played by the same woman, it's her, right? But like, it's not her.
Yeah.
But then also there's like later on, like the car goes off the road and it's like Nagi's talking, and Cemetery Man is the one that can't speak any longer.
Yeah.
So I'm just suggesting that maybe the second half of the film is a dream.
Is it a death dream? Is it a fantasy? Or is it just like reality's breaking?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, you know, the movie's meant to be like a little bit surrealist and comedic and all that. But like, I do think after he got bit, that's where the shift is. And it's like, you know, we can come up with different theories because like, you know, I mean, the fact that like basically he gives up on love, it's like I can't get love and I don't deserve it and now I don't want it anymore. So I'm fucking scorching earth and destroying, fuck this cemetery, fuck this job, I'm getting out kind of thing.
I feel like it also it never really describes like, I don't know, I left me with questions like were the dead only coming back to life in his cemetery, like where it never really, for better or for worse, it never really explains like why that's happening in the first place. Why are there returners? They don't call them zombies, right? But you know,
and he doesn't have an answer. Like his answer is like, is this happening in other cemeteries? I don't know because my world is very small. He has one friend, Franco, that he calls on the phone. And I guess goes to he works at the city hall office and, you know, files paperwork and shit. And then he has Nagi, who's his assistant, who is essentially mute and like, you know, kind of like built up as a man-child kind of thing. And when he interacts with other people, he's very cold and snide. There's that old lady that comes back and keeps calling him engineer until she ultimately passes away and gets buried. And he's like, oh, she was one of my favorite, you know, people to come visit, even though like he was kind of a dick to her, like every time he saw her.
Totally.
Francesco Dellamorte is a very, like, the character's just got so much depth because, like, you know, he has this longing for love and then he's just kind of just like an asshole.
It's all very comic booky.
Yeah.
And like, so I although a generic name, I think Cemetery Man really fits in the sense that like he's not a superhero, but you know, he as the protagonist of the story as Cemetery Man, like it just it fucking works, man.
I mean, the original Italian title Dellamorte Dellamore is like it gives this, it makes it sound classy. And like, it's
not you know, I mean, it's so well done, it's so well shot, it's so well scripted, it's so everything. So like, you know, it's not classy, it's just a fucking zombie movie.
I mean, I think that's the duality of this movie. It's like, and it's kind of fitting and has those two titles because, like, again, as I've already said, you could watch it as just an Italian zombie movie with, you know, fucking zombies getting shot and gore and sex and all that stuff, and it could be a 5-star experience. Or you could watch it on this other plane of, like, you know, this is a metaphoric, like, kind of esoteric, like, journey kind of movie. Like, it feels like there's indie movies in the 90s that weren't genre-based that would try to hit those tropes, and they just couldn't nail it. And this movie just nails it. Part of me thinks, like, because of, you know, Soavi's association with Terry Gilliam, if you watch things like Brazil and stuff like that, that's running through this movie, too. And I haven't read the comic book, but I did read an interview with the guy that created it, and what he said about Cemetery Man, he's like, I'm envious of how well this is and how much it captured the spirit of Dylan Dog and my novel and all that. It's like, it's perfect.
It's all very comic booky.
Yeah.
And like, so I although a generic name, I think Cemetery Man really fits in the sense that like he's not a superhero, but you know, he as the protagonist of the story as Cemetery Man, like it just it fucking works, man.
I mean, the original Italian title Dellamorte Dellamore is like it gives this, it makes it sound classy. And like, it's
not you know, I mean, it's so well done, it's so well shot, it's so well scripted, it's so everything. So like, you know, it's not classy, it's just a fucking zombie movie.
I mean, I think that's the duality of this movie. It's like, and it's kind of fitting and has those two titles because, like, again, as I've already said, you could watch it as just an Italian zombie movie with, you know, fucking zombies getting shot and gore and sex and all that stuff, and it could be a 5-star experience. Or you could watch it on this other plane of, like, you know, this is a metaphoric, like, kind of esoteric, like, journey kind of movie. Like, it feels like there's indie movies in the 90s that weren't genre-based that would try to hit those tropes, and they just couldn't nail it. And this movie just nails it. Part of me thinks, like, because of, you know, Soavi's association with Terry Gilliam, if you watch things like Brazil and stuff like that, that's running through this movie, too. And I haven't read the comic book, but I did read an interview with the guy that created it, and what he said about Cemetery Man, he's like, I'm envious of how well this is and how much it captured the spirit of Dylan Dog and my novel and all that. It's like, it's perfect. And even Rupert Everett, who I think isn't big on the movie because I don't think he's big on genre stuff, but like he
He seems like a very like a theater kind of guy.
Yeah, but like what he said about it is like this movie plays like a comic strip. It's like there's very few movies that like capture the actual strip aspect of how the action plays out.
Totally.
And he feels like Cemetery Man is that. Like it does it so well and so perfectly. And that's the other thing about it, because at the time this was made in Italy, like Italy had, I don't want to say, you know, its film productions had fallen off. It wasn't the heyday of like, you know, spaghetti westerns or giallo films or like, you know, French Connection knockoffs or like all the other like kind of cash in knockoff things they did that went to either direct to video or playing in theaters. Like that stuff was ending. Like that, the Italian film industry was changing. A lot of those people ended up just going to TV because that's where the work was, because they weren't making as many movies. There wasn't a demand for export. So Cemetery Man coming out, and like I'm sure it wasn't the biggest budget, but like it feels a lot bigger. It feels a lot bigger than a lot of the movies that came out before it. And that's the other thing that's really impressive, because the production design's fucking insane on it.
Yeah.
And the way it's shot and like the way it's like, you know, directed, cinematography, all the things we talked about, it just like, it just plays out like it's, you know, it's a movie that you feel like you've seen, but like when you really think about it, have you seen anything like Cemetery Man?
Right.
It's just, I don't know, it's just really fucking impressive. And just like, you know, when I was in high school and I first saw it, like I think my first watch was like, yay, you know, Italian horror movie and gore and stuff, and being familiar with Soavi through the Argento connection. But like, this was a movie that I kept revisiting repeatedly because there's just something there that like a deeper connection. And I think like in a way it's a different kind of gateway movie, because it's not, you know, I've seen Zombie, I've seen the Fulci zombie movies, I've seen Burial Ground, Nightmare City, every other like, you know, kind of like zombie movie, but there's just something that was deeper that kind of opened up appreciation for art.
One thing that I don't think we really mentioned or really talked about earlier, it's in English.
Yeah.
And I think that really, I mean, it definitely makes it much more accessible.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to an American audience, obviously.
Well,
but
I mean, it kind of follows the formula of a lot of Italian productions, because some Italian productions were made geared to get a U.S. release or like an English-speaking release. And casting Rupert Everett in it, who like, because even at that time, Italians still shot all their movies like MOS without sound, so like everything's dubbed after the fact. And he clearly dubbed himself, which means like he gave enough of a fuck to have his voice in there.
Gotcha.
And, you know, there's a lot of Italian actors and I think a few French actors. And
with that said, do you, like, is anyone in this film, do you think that someone else did their voice?
Probably.
Yeah? Okay.
I mean, without a doubt. I couldn't point out who, but like...
Yeah, right on. That's crazy.
But I think it's well done. Like the dubbing portion.
Yeah, it's really well done. I would never suspect it if so.
Well, I think what either happened is that whoever was doing their lines, they could either like phonetically do it, and whoever dubbed it filled it in perfectly.
Yeah.
Like this was made to get a bigger release.
Cool.
And like I think that it comes out to Argento, because a lot of the Argento movies are like that. You know, you're not hiring like a well-known like American or British actor to have it just play in Italian. You have goals to get into a bigger market. And this movie was released by October Films, and I think it got released through Fox in the United States.
Okay.
So it had really good distribution.
Gotcha.
And like, you know, it played theatrically, not a lot, but like it became a huge hit on home video.
I feel like after you after you introduced me to it, I could be wrong, but I feel like I do remember it popping up then in like the video stores that I was going to. You know, there was like one in Aberdeen and one Bel Air that I frequented a bunch, and I feel like it was at both.
It was at both, because like the first time I saw Cemetery Man, I rented it.
Cool. And
then I went maybe a few years later, I was at a horror convention. I saw a bootleg of it, thinking there was more gore and sex or whatever in it. But no, it like that's the other kind of weird thing about it, is the movie came out pretty much uncut, other than the title change in America.
Okay.
Which is really interesting, because like, you know, I mean, it's not like, you know, the gore never gets to like that Fulci level, but like, you know, there's definitely some zombie heads exploding, whatever, and there's some gnarly bites, and like, you know, I mean, it's not graphic sex, but there's definitely pretty erotic sex in it.
It's straight up softcore porn, bro. For a 17-year-old kid in the 90s, this was my porno.
I mean, that's the other thing, like the sex in the movie. It doesn't, you know, you see a lot of exploitation horror movies and all that, and how it's portrayed. It's almost like just bad or comical, or it leads into like a death scene. Like, obviously, the one big sex scene in this movie the famous one that's used on one of the poster art when she's on top of him, like that's on the Japanese Laserdisc cover.
Gotcha.
And it has an image of fucking death behind it. It's like it's one of the most badass fucking covers.
It's straight out of like a fucking Sam Hain shirt or something.
Oh, it totally is.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there's something different in the sex with this movie, and like I feel like when I think of sex in horror movies, like, you know, I think it's stuff like Cronenberg and stuff like that, where it was tapping into another, like, I don't want to say primal, but like, you know, there's sex for titillation and there's sex that has like depth to it. And like, yeah, it's in there. It's an exploitive element. It's a marketing element for this movie. I'm sure there was probably a nudity requirement in there because that was what would sell in certain, you know, countries or whatever. But like, it's different. It doesn't feel like, if you watch any of the goofy Friday the 13th sex scenes, this is not it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's passionate for one thing. It's like before, like, they're even getting it, he's just kissing her all over and, like, you know, getting her warmed up and shit. And I know we're probably talking way too much and it probably sounds awkward as shit talking about it, but
warmed up.
I don't know, but like, no, man, it's like, I think because like he's taking time to set up the pleasure for her, which is what is not very common in a lot of like exploitation movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to do male, female gaze kind of shit here with this, but it's just like, it just feels different because even later when he picks up the third version of her that ends up being the prostitute, like there's like this kinetic like intimacy to it that isn't really in horror movies.
She was just a model. I don't think she acted in many other things.
No.
And she's also, she's just credited as she. She doesn't have a name in this film.
Yeah, because there's 3 of her. And, you know, again, that comes back as like, you know, obviously the first version existed, did the other 2.
Yeah.
And that's just some deeper shit to think about. And it's just like, you know, and anyone can relate to this, guy, girl, he, she, they, you know, you've been in love with someone at some point in your life. And you've had that love that has, you know, escaped you, or like you just never had the one heartbreak that hurts, which is another underlying thing of this, because it's just like, you know, you meet the person of your dreams and you essentially ruin it by killing them.
Well, so that also leads me to another theory. Was he in purgatory the whole time? You know, is this a Lost situation where him being the cemetery man, is he's trapped at the cemetery just like everybody else? And so even, you know, it's all fiction. It's all not real, or it's all just purgatory. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a good theory, because like at a certain point, like when he gets out of the cemetery, they're almost like not the early stuff when he runs into the mayor and when Augie pukes on Valentina and stuff like that.
But he like gets to the end of the fucking road.
Yeah, he gets
you
to
know, it's like
that's the end. That's where it ends. And
it's like the world's end. You know.
I mean, it pretty much is. It's like, you know, obviously he can get out of the cemetery and do some shit, but like when he tries to fully leave the town, he can.
You know, spoiler alert, you know, he's just in the fucking snow globe the whole time.
And that's a fucking nice touch, because you see the end of the movie at the beginning of the movie, because it's him and Nagi in the snow globe.
In hell, in purgatory, and, you know, real sick.
I mean, it's the way that movie just plays out and sets things up and just knocks them down is like, it's so goddamn good. And I want to talk about Nagi in a second, but I just want to talk about like just, you know, just the craft of all of that and just like all the things going on, but like the bureaucracy of like the job he has, because apparently like no one really gives a shit and no one wants to know that there's a problem.
Yeah.
So he just kind of takes care of it, and if he causes a problem, like they're like, well, you'll be fired. So like I guess he's like rather have a job and have to kill zombies like, you know, 7 days after they're buried, than like, you know, hey, maybe we could really fix this. Because, like, again, they don't explain, is it the earth they're being buried in? Is it just some, like, weird occult element? Like, it's not explained, and frankly, I don't think it matters.
It doesn't at all, but, you know, so I mean, I love it. I love that it's a question.
Yeah.
Really, you know? It adds to its greatness.
And the zombies talk.
Yeah.
When the one bites she, like, her dead husband, he's like, that's life! And, like... Which is kind of goofy, but like it kind of works. And then like when the dead mayor tries to escape, he's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "You can't keep me in here," you know. I mean, I think like
so it breaks some of the zombie convention. By the way, if you, much like me, are just over the zombie fucking thing and you've never seen this, this is the one. This is the zombie movie to see. Really.
No,
it's on the list with the other greats. Absolutely.
It's up there. It's definitely in my top 5 zombie movies ever made,
Mm-hmm.
just flat out. And like we were talking about when we got done, and I said something, and you kind of corrected me, and I actually agree with you on this. Is Cemetery Man the last great zombie movie? And then you brought up Shaun of the Dead, and I think Shaun of the Dead probably is really the last great zombie movie.
Right on.
But do I think Cemetery Man is better than Shaun of the Dead? Absolutely,
Yeah,
because
sure.
because it's not carrying the baggage of like, you know, a homage to like zombie movies. This is just its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Zombies are almost like background shit. Like obviously it's important, but it's really about like Francesco Dellamorte and just like questioning, like, you know, being a lost soul. It's like there's a reason why he's in that, you know, grave working that cemetery, is because he is a lost soul. He has nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's another thing I connected with, just feeling like so kind of alienated in life and just kind of going through, and you meet people, but you're not really connecting with people, which is clearly what he's doing. Like everyone he interacts with in the movie, for the most part, he has zero connection with. He has his one friend he calls on the phone. He has Noggy, who like he sometimes treats nicely and sometimes treats like absolute shit.
Yeah.
And then obviously she.
They have it's kind of the Jay and Silent Bob kind of trope going on there.
Yeah. That's a good point too. I'm trying to think what I think Clerks came out like 93, 94, so it was around the same time. But like, you know, we should talk about Noggy a little bit, because he's great comic relief, and there is a bit in that movie where it does not fly anymore today. But I think it's justifiable, not in the sense that what he's doing is justifiable, but I think like that was a trope. Like, you know, Noggy's like he's bald, he's heavy set, he's, you know, can't talk, he's like a man child.
Yeah.
And like he's kind of like this, you know, whatever, you know, he lives underneath where Francesco lives. I do want to say, like, he's got a pretty nice pad at the cemetery.
Despite like literally living in a crypt, you know, like he kind of lives in a hole in the ground.
Yeah, like
but it's it's a nice apartment for a hole in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, well, the top floor is nice, but like Noggy's is, even though it is literally a dugout basement with like there's no real floor or anything, but it's got TV and shit.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, Noggy is actually a little more complex than, like, you know, might seem. Because, like, you know, obviously it could fall in the trope of, like, you know, man-child or, like, you know, mentally disabled or something like that. Whatever, like, supposed to be implied. And then, obviously, like, you know, when him and Francesco go out in the world and they see the mayor's daughter, and he kind of falls in love. And even though, like, Francesco says, like, you're a year older than me, and that girl's, like, what, supposed to be 14 in the movie? So there's a little that going on. And then when she dies with the biker dude.
Little age gap discourse.
Yeah, well, there's more than that going on with this. I mean, because, like, when they die, like, that car wreck with the Boy Scouts, and then, like, that is one of the biggest laughs, like, for me. And, like, I think plays out when, like, you realize there's, like, this whole row of dead Boy Scouts, like, Valentina's biker boyfriend and all their friends. Like, there's, like, fucking 30 people getting buried. And you can just, like, the look that, like, Francesco Dellamorte has as he's just looking over like this, it's like, I'm going to be busy.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when Valentina comes back, like, because she was decapitated in an accident, Noggy takes her head and puts it in TV, and, like, it's very sweet, but, like, you know, if you look at it for what it really is, it's really fucked up. But, like, where do you go when she's dead? How does that count? I mean, I guess it still counts. Her dad wasn't happy about it. But, like, you also get that crazy shot of, like, the head flying and biting, like, the mayor, like Valentina's severed head.
Oh, so good. So good.
I mean, but, you know, I think if there's anything that hasn't aged well in a movie and people want to flag, that would probably be it. But I think it's kind of minor. It's not like he was fucking the head or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just this weird puppy love thing with a person that's really mentally not, you know, above, like, you know, a child.
He's fucking that head.
He might have been. I don't know. I don't know. That's not our movie to tell. And clearly that was Michele Soavi's movie to tell, so that's not in there. I do want to talk about the active shooter stuff, especially when he goes to the hospital, because, you know, he thinks he's finally going to get arrested, especially when he makes the turn and starts killing people. And like, you know, he torches like the she that lives in like the prostitute one and just burns that whole fucking apartment down.
Yeah.
And like when there's a cop that's reoccurring in there that's like kind of like Italian Columbo in a way, but a little more snappier. It's like, hey, like definitely 1940s detective going on.
Yeah.
It's like, found your check, but we all have our, you know, vices, whatever. But I know you didn't kill it because the guy, like Franco, your friend that he was on the phone with, is the one who's allegedly snapped and burned it down. So then he gets pissed that people were stealing his fucking murders.
Yeah.
And that's another kind of little bit of incel thing. It's like, how dare you take credit for something I did?
Yeah, yeah.
And then he goes to the hospital, and like, it's that. Thinking about it now in the context of where the world is, that scene's insane. Because people keep walking in, it's like, oh, what's going on? And he just shoots them.
Oh yeah.
He like kills like 4 people up there, and then like the kind of the capper to it when he's like talking shit to Franco is like, how dare you steal my murders? I called you a friend, this and that. And Franco, like, he pulls like the thing out of his mouth because he can't really, you know, I don't know what the fuck it is, whatever that medical thing was in his mouth. Franco's like, who are you? And that you can feel Francesco Dellamorte get deflated that like, even as his like someone is taking credit for his stuff, that person acts like he doesn't know him.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of leaves, and he crosses paths with the detective, and he's like, there's a madman on the top floor of the hospital. Oh, he brought a gun. Good. You can protect yourself. Like, that shit is fucking funny. But yeah, I could talk forever about this movie because there's just so much in it. And like, I'm really excited to see it with a sold out crowd at the Aero Theater. That's like 400 plus people going to be losing their mind. A lot of people have seen it before, but there's going to be a bunch of people that haven't.
Hell yeah.
And like, it's, you know, I feel like if you're not moved by this movie in any way, good or bad, you know, love it or hate it, there's something wrong with you as like not only a genre fan, but just as a cinephile. As
a human.
Yeah, as a fucking human. If you feel nothing from this movie, if you don't have any kind of emotional response, then obviously you're a returner. So Noggy, get the fucking spade because we're gonna put you down.
There you go.
So, all right, closing thoughts on Cemetery Man here.
I think you just I think you'd wrap it up already with Noggy, get a spade. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe. But I might have hit the ending a little too hard.
Yeah, you know, fucking. You know, I think this qualifies as a banger.
There we go. Certified banger.
All right.
And with that said, if you don't get a chance to see this when it plays Beyond Fest, it's going to be part of the AGFA catalog. So if you're a film programmer, definitely book that shit. Get it into your repertory calendar. Also, be on the lookout for that Severin 4K Blu-ray combo that'll be coming out at some point. I don't think they've announced that, but I did see today they also announced that they're doing Dario Argento's opera, which I knew about. So they got a full slate of like, you know, Michele Soavi associated things. They're going to be doing Cemetery Man, The Church, The Sect, and Opera all in 4K.
Very nice.
All new restorations, and you know, shout out to Severin because this screening wouldn't be happening if they didn't figure out how to get the rights to Cemetery Man sorted. So we're going to take one last break here, but when we return, it's going to be Read, Watch, and Listen here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
I don't know how the epidemic started. All I know is that some people, on the 7th night after their death, come back to life. I call them returners.
I don't live alone. I've got a helper, Nagi.
On his ID card it reads, distinctive visible marks, all. The most beautiful living woman I have ever seen.
The cemetery's small, but it's got a marvelous ossuary.
I don't want to. I can't.
Why on your poor husband's grave, huh?
You would have liked to know.
Well,
I've always been so understanding.
That's life.
He came back from the dead, he raped her, and then bit her to death.
Is it true what they say, that the dead come back to life here at night?
Go away. I haven't got time for the living.
How sweet.
Yeah? No.
Please don't. I'd like to marry now.
Not as long, dear, as I've got a breath in my body.
All right.
If you don't want the
dead coming back to life, why don't you just kill the living?
Smoking is not allowed in here.
What are you doing on the floor, sister?
Just praying.
Dellamonte, wait! There's another maniac on the loose. He already shot 3.
Somebody's stolen my crimes.
Make a wish.
I want you to fall in love with me.
Shoot them in the head.
Welcome back. It's now time for on the Cinematic Void podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. All right, Nick, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
All right, so I'm still reading that Ant Kind, which I'm sure you'll talk about as well. Although I'm not going to talk about it in any depth because A, I haven't gotten that far, and B, because I don't know, we'll probably talk about it more in depth later. Also dug a little into the Bergman autobiography called The Magic Lantern something or other, but I seem to have lost it today and yesterday. I can't find my fucking book, and it's pissing me off. But it'll turn up, I don't know. But so I'm going through that guy. I just watched Rules of the Game. Who I'm spacing on the director.
Is it Jean Renoir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. See the greatest, no, not the Great Escape. The Grand
Illusion.
He did The Grand Illusion and Rules of the Game. I think that I just, after like so many times of hearing someone say that like stuff like Surviving the Game was kind of a ripoff of this, I was greatly disappointed that it wasn't just like that type of film. So I think I just wanted to, let's just let a bunch of people loose and go shoot them. Yeah, that's what I was looking for that day, and it didn't deliver.
Well, I don't think the Rules of the Game, you're confusing it with, what's a
completely
different movie. Now I'm thinking what it is. It's The Most Dangerous Game.
The Most Dangerous Game is the original version?
Yeah. It was.
No wonder I was disappointed. I feel like a dick.
Yeah,
man, I thought. Man, I mean, there's a little bit of, they bust out some guns and shit.
Yeah, but but it's The Most Dangerous Game because that was
that's so sick.
The movie that was produced by the people that produced.
I'm not cutting this out. This rules.
Yeah, Most Dangerous Game. Yeah, Most Dangerous Game is like the one. It was produced by the people who did King Kong and all that. And they did King Kong after, and there's some connections there.
Yeah.
But like,
so Rules of the Game, not that type of movie at all. It's not like The Hunt or Surviving the Game or anything like that. And it kind of pisses me off. But it's still pretty good. It's still pretty good. I guess it's supposed to be, a fucking classic, but just pretty good as far as I'm concerned. But I think that it was just because of my expectations. And
to be fair, they're both in the Criterion Collection.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out. Thanks for the recommendation there. I also just rewatched Mass, which is it's a mass shooting movie without a mass shooting. It's just a bunch of people in a room talking, which is a genre I definitely really appreciate. And it's just two families that get together, and one of them would be the father of the mass shooter, and the mother and father of the mass shooter, and the mother and father of one of the victims, and they kind of they hash it out. Pretty heavy, and so I had to watch it again. Also, like I said, I saw The Town for one of the Cinematic Void Mondays over at the LF3, and I'm drawing some parallels from the Town and Cemetery Man. Ben Affleck with his little romantic role there, and he's kind of stuck in a little purgatory himself. Ooh. Of kind of stuck in the heist game. He can't get out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like The Town has a more clean-cut, happier ending than Cemetery Man.
But I see some similarities there.
But no, I agree with you. It's like, you find the person you love who's also the person that could send you to fucking jail for forever.
Yeah.
But that's rewatching The Town in the theater. I thought
much like Nagi's love interest, she could send him to jail forever.
Yeah.
And then I also saw Van Nuys Boulevard. at a friend's house. Yeah, this was a new one to me, and I enjoyed it. As far as, films kind of about nothing, or not really a hangout movie, as people say. Not always my thing. I like movies about stuff.
Your hangout movie is people hanging out talking about a mass shooting.
Yeah, fuck, I guess it is. Yeah, we all have our things, man.
We got invited up to the homie Scott Carlson's house. Scott from Repulsion's been on the podcast a few episodes. And he, I guess, had been doing screenings up there. And he was like, hey, we're going to be showing Van Nuys Boulevard. We're going to have the first assistant director, David Osterhout, from the film there. He also wrote Women in Cages and things like that. He had a long storied career of exploitation and indie films. He actually worked with Martin Scorsese on Mean Streets and Boxcar Bertha. Came out with his daughter, and I ended up, Scott's like, you should do a Q&A with him. And I was like, all right, fine. So we did a little Q&A before the movie and went down memory lane. Mark from the Coolidge was there with us. Mark's like, when did you have time to prepare for this? I'm like, I didn't prepare for this, dog. I was just winging it. But that guy had good stories, and it was just I think he was happy to talk about it. And he definitely, he also worked for Roger Corman at different points too. So it's just, I think he would talk about you don't make any money for this, you're doing it for the love. And eventually, the love don't pay the bills, so you kind of pivot careers. And I think he got into the different, unions and stuff like that. But really cool guy. It was a really fun night, we were watching Van Nuys Boulevard pretty much, maybe less than a mile away from Van Nuys Boulevard. Mm-hmm. Although I will say Van Nuys Boulevard does not really take place on Van Nuys Boulevard. It is, like most Crown International pictures, it takes place mostly around Malibu Beach. There's definitely a lot of Malibu Beach. There's a lot more Malibu Beach than Van Nuys Boulevard.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. I really like this one. I know I was saying earlier, I'm not really big into the hangout movie thing, but it made me think of things like Days of Confused, which I like a whole lot. So, I have a feeling something like that is very influenced by this sort of thing.
Oh, definitely. A lot of these kind of hangout movies, people kind of don't think about them unless you're deeper into the exploitation market, because a lot of the 80s teen sex stuff and a lot of the movies that Crown kind of made have just, they're not part of the zeitgeist of cult cinema anymore. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with I don't want to say rights, because Vinegar Syndrome has put out some Crown International titles as of late, and then Scorpion Releasing had put out a grip of them too. So they're out there, but just it's a very specific genre. And if you watch USA Up All Night or Cinemax and shit like that, it's more of a staple for those kind of people than maybe the youth of today.
Gotcha. I recently found out about this band called Her Head's on Fire, who I think actually might be from the Maryland or from the DMV. I think they did a split with Jay Robbins from Burning Airlines and Jawbox and all that stuff. Although, since I don't have a physical release of this, I'm not entirely sure if maybe he produced this full length, but it's called College Rock and Clove Cigarettes. That name sucks. But this record rocks. It's just good 90s style, college rock or whatever.
I mean, then the title's kind of fitting, because it's
a dumbass name.
It's a dumbass name.
The record's great.
It's a dumbass name that reflects the era. Just,
I'll take it. But cool record. It's a full length. Also been listening to the Doughboys record Turn Me On. The last record by the Canadian rock band the Doughboys. It's great, from the mid 90s. Also been listening to Mega City 4 and Weston. I guess I'm on a 90s kick. Year of the Rabbit. They just released for the first time the Year of the Rabbit record on vinyl. It came out in the early 2000s, and it's Ken from Failure and some of the guys from Shiner. And it's really, really cool to see a vinyl release on this. Of course, I bought one. And that's what I've been into lately, man.
Yeah, for me, read is Antkind, the Charlie Kaufman book. We will be, once we both finish it, we'll talk about that in length, but that's the read. I watched a movie called Darker Than Night. It's a Spanish kind of horror movie from the 70s. It was a virtual date night with Leslie and I. We watched it on Shudder. It was pretty good. Kind of a slow burner. Might have been a little too slow at times, but once it kind of got going, it got pretty good. Also, rewatched Nightmares and a Damaged Brain, because Severin Films just put that out on 4K and Blu-ray, and one of the best kind of grimy exploitation slasher movies ever made, where Tom Savini is credited as effects artist, but did not work on it.
Mm-hmm.
He just showed up for a day, got his photo taken holding the axe that was used in the movie, and they're like, special effects by Tom Savini. Like, literally, that's what they try to do, and he sued the shit out of him to get his name taken off of it. But Nightmares on a Damaged Brain is actually a really... I like it. It's one of the best.
It's a video nasty, right?
It's a video nasty, and it is pretty nasty. There's a gnarly decapitation with an axe. Definitely see some vintage 42nd Street in New York when it was still like grimy and, you know, grindhousey.
Cool. Really cool.
Listen, there's a bunch of new things that came out, and I'm going to start with the 3 death metal releases that kind of came out around the same time. Blood Incantation, Luminescent Bridge, which is a single. There's 2 songs on that. It's, if you like your death metal kind of space rocky prog a little bit.
Yeah, 13-minute long song, I think it is.
Oh, it is. There's 2 songs. The first one I like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of like,
Is that the one with the music video?
Yeah, it's the one with the music video.
Very sick.
There's like maybe some Metallica in there, like, you know, I dare I say like somewhere around Master of Puppets Ride of Lightning. So
cool,
but obviously a little, I don't want to say more polished than Metallica, but just better production.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, those 2 records were made with whatever technology was available then.
Yeah.
So like you can hear like those elements, but a lot cleaner, because like, you know, music production's gotten crazy.
It has.
With how good it is.
And these guys are no slouches either. They're fucking masters at what they do.
Oh, they're
so that with a nice recording. Whew.
Yeah, that shit is shredding. Cannibal Corpse, you know, probably the most famous death metal band.
I haven't heard any of this yet.
You haven't heard this record
I
yet?
haven't listened to it yet, no.
Wow. It's the album's called Chaos Horrific, and it's pretty goddamn good.
Cool.
It's, you know, this is their second record with Eric Rutain on guitar.
Oh, sick. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that reminds me, and I don't know, since, you know, if you look at what happened to their one guitarist, Pat O'Brien, like he apparently had a mental breakdown and got himself arrested, and you know pulled a knife on some cops as his house is burning in Florida or whatever that was. That shit was insane.
Super sick, like straight out of Cannibal Corpse lyrics. Like he lives that shit.
So I haven't heard anything about him since. So I think
he's just chilling in jail,
I guess, or like a mental hospital or something like that. Like no one has said after that happened. They like basically said, "Hey, Eric's gonna come in and like fill in, record his album and tour." I think just Eric Rutan's just in the band now. I mean, it's safe to actually. I think there was an announcement to say Eric was the permanent guitarist now.
I mean, motherfucker. Morbid Angel, and then Hate Eternal, and then Cannibal Corpse. I mean, what a fucking resume, man.
And Ripping Corpse.
And fucking Ripping Corpse. Jesus Christ, dude. He's easily been 4 of the best death metal bands.
And he's definitely wrote some songs. He also produced the record too. So it's fucking good.
Fuck yeah.
It's like, you know, kind of noodly and like complicated like lots of Cannibal Corpse can be, but some of it's straight ahead too. So it's a nice mix. It's just a solid fucking record. And like, you know, at this point, like when you're how many fucking years, 20, 30, fucking probably over 30 years of fucking doing this, and you're still writing really goddamn good songs that are interesting and catchy.
It's pretty wild. They've turned it into almost a death metal factory, these guys. You know what I mean? They really, I mean, they're cranking out new records pretty quick these days, it feels like. I mean, maybe it's every couple years, but like, I have to fucking respect it.
Yeah.
And like for the longest time, man, I was just like a Chris Barnes guy. But eventually I got won over by Corpse Grinder, and I just, you know, I may not just sit around listening to all those new Cannibal Corpse records all the time, but I respect it so much, dude. They're the best.
Yeah,
they're the best.
It's like, you know, it's like I'm not always going to throw this on, but like I always check out when a new one comes out. And like, you know, when you get a good grip of songs, it's like, damn, it's like they're just not fucking around. It's like, it's kind of like, because they're in the legacy act probably part of their career, like it kind of reminds me of where Iron Maiden is now, where it's like they don't necessarily have to keep writing music, but I think they're doing it because they actually love it and want to.
When was the last time a brand new Iron Maiden record came out?
It's been a few years now.
Yeah.
They're probably due for another one.
I don't think I've heard the last few.
I feel like the thing with all metal bands now, regardless if they're death metal or heavy metal or whatever, they're all getting into prog.
Yeah.
It's the thing, because Maiden's writing like 18-minute songs and shit again.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, the next thing you listen to there.
Yeah, Tomb Mold. The Enduring Spirit, which is a Canadian death metal outfit, who have definitely tapped into the more prog and, dare I say, like the jazzy death metal subset of like Atheist and maybe some of those later Death records or whatever. And I'd say maybe Carcass Necrotism kind of era in there as well. I like it. I don't love it.
Yeah.
And I think, because I think the last few like Tomb Mold records are just really heavy and really punishing in the best way.
Yeah.
And this one isn't that, and that's probably okay. It's just maybe my expectations of what I wanted out of it. So I'll probably give it more of a listen. But out of the 3 releases, I think that Cannibal Corpse is the best of the 3.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I mean, that Blood Incantation, it's a really good song, but like I think just looking at it, like, just having listened to everything almost back to back, and it's just like there's some catchy riffs on that Cannibal Corpse record.
Fuck yeah.
Although it kind of still falls into the metal area. Listen to the Final Gasp Morning Moon record. Morning as in MOURN, not as in morning as the time of day. This is a band we talked about, and you introduced me to because you're like Sam Hain worship.
And I remember you saying on the last podcast that'll, I guess, maybe come out later, but that you didn't like this as much as you thought you were going to, or something like that. I'm curious if it grew on you now that you've listened to it a little more.
It was I was talking about the last single that came out, and that was the one that didn't grab me. The other 2 really did.
Okay.
And there's a thing about this record, and I think like when it's very Sam Hain-y, I think it's really good. I think it kind of drifts more to death rock at times.
Yeah, it does a kind of a Killing Joke sort of thing, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike it, but like I think, after those couple EPs where it was like really fucking riding the fucking Sam Hain aspect of it, even their Husker Du cover where they kind of like made it like Sam Hain covering Husker Du. I mean, there's branching out and stuff, but there's a few moments that remind me of like maybe, Danzig, like Danzig 1 stuff coming out of it. And I don't know how I feel about those because
I for sure prefer the Sam Hain vibe from this band. I mean, I don't know. It's like on one hand, Sam Hain's such a special band. Maybe we don't need a new Sam Hain. You know what I'm saying? But dude, they're good at it. These guys are sick.
It's nice because there's 1.5 million fucking Misfits clones.
True.
So it's nice that someone else is tapping into like the best band Danzig's ever been in. You can at me all you want. Sam Hain's better than Misfits and Danzig. Come on.
And hey, Danzig isn't exactly going to be writing any like great new records either, so it's nice to have these guys even if they're just doing Danzig.
Yeah,
fuck it, man.
I mean, I'll say like I like the record. I'm not in love with it, but I feel like maybe they'll change. There was another I can't remember the other band that came out with a kind of a death rock. Dune Altar put it out, and I'm just blanking on the name of that band.
Ritual something.
Yeah, it was what is it called? Yeah, that band was Rival Cults. It came out on Dune Altar. That they're definitely more like maybe Sisters of Mercy, like on the death rock end of the spectrum, Christian death stuff. I like that record probably more than this one, but like we'll see where I land at the end of the year because like it's getting to be Halloween season. By the time this podcast comes out, it will be.
I mean, especially that first single, but I think there's something special about this record. I think it's really fucking good, man.
I think I need to repeat listens and like plus when like I'll be on the East Coast for the fall, so that probably the mood will be
there. You go.
The table will be set a little bit more for it. The last 2 records I've listened to are more on the electronic side. First one is a record by a band called Public Memory called Elegiac Beat. My girlfriend Leslie introduced me to this. We were been talking about like they're playing Philly when I'm on the East Coast, so we might go to that. It definitely, I don't want to say it's like trip hop or anything like that, but it's definitely like, I don't know, it kind of hits like the nice electronic spectrum where like some of it's kind of like grooving, some kind of soundtrack. There's definitely vocals in it. There's moments that remind me of some trip hop stuff, some Portishead here and there, but like I thought it was a really good record.
Are the vocals in that realm as well, where it's a little more kind of a
they're kind of dreamy. To be honest,
cool.
I'd say there's some dream pop in there, but there's no like guitars in the music per se. So, but it's definitely a really interesting record, and like I know she loves this band and like has sung praises, so I definitely gave this a listen. I was like, I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And the other electronic bass thing was John Carpenter's got a new record that's not out yet, but it's Anthology 2, where basically him and his son and Dave Davies' kid, I think his name is Ray Davies, that's John Carpenter's band, essentially, are re-recording some of his hits. And I was surprised to see that he's doing some Halloween 3 tracks, and one of the singles he released was Cherry of Pumpkins, and goddamn,
oh yeah,
it's fucking great.
Cool.
It's I think the thing that Carpenter's done with, like, you know, just being the musician portion of his career now is that he's taken his music and, like, really thought it through, like, how do you make it more of a song?
Okay.
So it's just like, it's a nice revisionist. I don't want to say revisionist because it's not really changing. It's not remaking, you know, it's, I mean, obviously they're re-recording the fucking song, but like there's a punch to it.
Yeah. I wonder what the real reasoning behind re-recording some of that stuff is. Just like, oh, I just want to make it better. Or is it to spite Alan Howarth? Is it licensing? Is it, you know, monetary?
I think you answered. I think
it's all
of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of all of the above because,
Yeah.
like, you know, I've seen Alan Howarth do Cherry to Pumpkins live, and like it was good. But like, you know, I when I saw Carpenter live, it was definitely a different beast of a live show.
Cool.
Like, I don't know if he's gonna play out again anytime soon, but I saw him twice, and they fucking killed it.
Nice.
You know, it's just like he's having the fucking time of his life up there, fucking chewing gum and fucking banging them keys.
I mean, I don't know how you peel him away from the weed and video games, but
well, you put a fat bag at the end of the
That's
day
it,
playing
that's
a
it.
concert. There you go. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up this episode of the Cinematic Void Podcast. Before we wrap things up, why did I just say wrap twice? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. It's been a long week at Beyond Fest, so we'll be wrapping here. But I just want to remind everyone that the Cinemadness movie is back. Going to be dropping on October 7th, first episode of 4 brand new episodes. It's going to be all Saturdays in October, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Going to get a secret movie, going to have vintage commercials, and the one that's going to be on the 28th, the one that closes out the spooky season, so to speak, is going to be a doubleheader. So make sure you catch that shit live on YouTube. And until next time, see you in the void.
Give me the spade. No, give me the fucking spade.
Eat.